got 152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
That's dirt.
Yo, 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 ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Preferred Lines podcast. I'm your gracious host, Joe Idoni at Tour Picks is a place to find me on X. My co-host, as always, the man at PGA Tout himself, almost had himself one heck of a weekend, John Hazelbauer. Good to see you, John. We are here tonight to bring you a 2025 preview of the FedEx St. Jude Championship at a freshly renovated, which we'll talk about, TPC Southwind. We'll recap a little bit of Cam Young's triumphant first PGA Tour victory in Greensboro, North Carolina. And we do it all on behalf of the great folks over at Rotoballer. The team over there is proudly the sponsor of this show this entire season. The banner, as you see scrolling across the bottom of your screen now, if you're here with us on YouTube, will issue you a 10% off promo code just by using the word lines at your checkout of any PGA premium subscription. As always, super appreciative of their support. My top 10 power rankings were up last night for the FedEx St. Jude. Speaking of power rankings, John, you had Nico number one. You pushed all the chips to the center of the table. We were riding as a community. We even sourced some witchcraft into the mix, and it wasn't enough to stop a Cam Young massive by a touchdown victory.
No, it wasn't. You know, you live and you learn. Probably the last time I resort to witchcraft. I felt like it was bigger than me. And if it was just me and my own bet, I would never do that. But I actually did feel like I was doing the greater good a service by trying to get Cam Young to lose that event because so many people were on Nico. Yeah. We were talking before we went live, like I was getting people out the woodwork, friends of friends, people I've never talked to before who just heard that I was confident in Nico and bet it. And then it came to Sunday morning and they were all reaching out to me, texting me, DMing me, friending me in places I didn't know I had social media. And they were all like, oh my God, I can't believe Nico's in it. We got this. So, you know, it was a very depressing second half of the afternoon because it just kept getting worse and worse. And I was like, oh, you know, well, even if he doesn't win, I got a good position in one and done and all these other positionals. Like he doesn't have to win for me to have a good week. And he just continued to spiral. And it kind of validated in a way the hope that I had going in that like a 5-shot swing is possible. It just went the wrong direction.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I still don't want to take anything away from what I think was a great call. I mean, T2 heading into Sunday in the final group for a guy 90 and 110 to 1 and how confident you were in it, speaking it into existence. I had people as well reaching out about your pick of Nico who were riding for him. And after one hole, it felt like, okay, here's a bogey. He's looking shaky. We have an opportunity here to strike with a hot putter in Nico Echeverria. And then Cam Young just went on a tear and it just felt over. And it was very anticlimactic for a Wyndham Championship, which we usually get some fireworks down the stretch. Cruise to victory. I see. Is that an NYGC cap there you're rocking?
Yeah, you know, it's no ill will. I'm actually trying to get, like, I owe Cam Young for the witchcraft thing. I am convinced that some poor soul named Cam Young got the brunt of that curse because that witch that I found on Etsy was very highly reviewed, all 5 stars, like hundreds of 5 stars in a business where what happened yesterday could so happen to anybody, reaching out for a curse that never comes. So I was very confident that something was going to happen. He bogeyed the first. And then it all went terribly wrong from there. And it was the opposite of a curse being put on somebody. So in hindsight, maybe I regret tapping into extra terrestrial forces or whatever we want to call that. I won't do it again. I will never resort to witchcraft again in any sport. I've seen it. I've tried it. I'm not doing it again. This is my message to Cam Young. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for stepping over that boundary. I'm glad that you prevailed for your own sake. You're on my Ryder Cup team. I hope to see you there at Bethpage. We'll talk about that too. And at the end of the day, he's a home team guy. He's New York Golf Club. I'm New York Golf Club through and through. So we got one on the board. Lord knows Xander wasn't putting one on the board. Ricky wasn't putting one on the board. Fitz has not put one on the board. So our first win in the TGL era for New York Golf Club. Shout out to Cam Young.
Things are looking up for NYGC. Fitz finally playing better. Cam Young's got his ball striking back to an elite level. Xander's finally healthy again. As you mentioned, resorting to witchcraft was something we haven't seen before in the streets of golf Twitter. We don't wish any ill will upon any other Cam Youngs in the world, but we may have some Nico Echeverria riders leaving her some 1-star reviews. But all fun and games. Congrats to Cam Young. You mentioned he is on your Ryder Cup team. Then, who else are your? Let's give me your last 3 guys on the team. Is Cam Young's for sure?
Yeah, it's always fluid. The one thing that you could guarantee is a certainty in our circles of golf Twitter is if you put your Ryder Cup team on Twitter, you will get a reaction, and people will hate it. Most people won't agree. It's impossible to get it perfect. It's always a fluid situation. So, like, everything that I put in there is caveated. Like, the list is getting more and more finite. Those are the hottest takes that I can get. Is like there are guys who, regardless of what they do from here on out, are not on the team. And I would say like Patrick Reed is there at this point. There's nothing else he can do to get on. Daniel Berger. Some people are like, oh, he's got great history. If he wins this week, Ryder Cup. It's like, no, it's too far gone.
No way for Berger.
He's really fallen off. It's been all like T50 or worse the last like 2 months. So I don't think one win.
Wyndham Clark wins at Caves Valley. Can he be on your team?
Windy, I think he played himself back on. You look at what he's been doing the last 2 months. It's caught me by surprise, but he's got like 4 or 5 top 15s in his last 5 or 6. Like he's got it going again. So he's in the mix. Home is dead. He's not even in the playoffs. So there's guys that you could start to cross off. But my last. So if we go quickly through it, like your 6 locks on points go through Harris English, who I think even if he wasn't an auto at this point, he deserves it.
Yep.
7 is
Thomas.
JT. Yeah.
He's on.
I thought Keegan was a lock, and then I got some responses like, have you seen what Keegan's been doing since the Travelers? Hasn't been great the last 3 weeks. I still think he's safely on, but if he gives you a bunch of duds in a row, then maybe you got to really have a hard conversation with yourself if you're Keegan Bradley about getting on this team. But he's on my team. I think he's still a great fit for Bethpage, and it would be a cool player captain situation. So I still got him. And then I'm getting like pushback on Colin. Like, I think if he shows any pulse over the next 3 events, he's on. He's still world golf ranking number 6 in the world. He's the number 5th ranked USA player in the world. Yes, he's had a disappointed season, but he really cares about the Ryder Cup. He wants to be on that team. He gives it his all. He has a good record in match play, and I'm not concerned about him going to a long, Bethpage Black course. He's done it time and time again in majors. So he's on my team. And then I think 10, 11, 12 are very fluid. But I've got it at Cam Young in my 10 spot, Chris Gotterup at 11, and Ben Griffin at 12.
I've got Gotterup. I've got Young. I think Pat Cantlay. I think it was decided like in January that he's on the team.
Could be true.
He's part of like this brass of the PGA Ryder Cup team that I think has been talking to Keegan throughout the year, talking him into playing. And I think the 4 guys are Cantlay, Xander, Thomas, and Scotty. I think those 4 guys are making a lot of the decisions and kind of steering a lot of the leadership in conjunction with Keegan Bradley. Do I think that he's played well enough this season to earn a spot on the Ryder Cup team? No. I think he's getting in on no hat Pat. I think he's getting in on, his record in the last 2 Ryder Cups and the President's Cup, his comfortability with Xander Schauffele, experience, ice, intimidation, all of those factors, I think probably gives him the edge. Where I'm kind of torn is Goddard and Ben Griffin. I want Goddard on the team. I think Ben Griffin has probably earned it over Goddard, even though I love the late stretch. Even as I was doing research here for Memphis, I'm looking at who are the last 24 rounds strokes gained total guys, and it's Scotty. Goddard is third. Ben Griffin's still second. Of all the players in this field, he's actually played better than Chris Goddard. So he's got to win. He's got technically 2 PGA Tour wins on the season. It's going to be tough, albeit I think I would like to see. I'd like to see Goddard. I'm going to do a full Team USA Ryder Cup pod with Andy Lack. We're recording later this evening. That should be out in the next couple of days, which should be a good bit of fun. John, let's kind of shift gears. I wanted to talk to you kind of about this run up into the FedEx Cup playoffs. So obviously the top 70 got into the field this week. It's a no-cut event, but there are only going to be 69 players competing this week because one Rory McIlroy has decided to skip the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. I don't really have a huge problem with it. I think if you have a problem with him skipping, then you have a problem with the PGA Tour playoff system. Yeah. Is basically my take on it. How did it make you feel to have a player kind of take a week off in the middle of what they've portrayed to be an important end of the season culmination stretch toward, crowning a tour champion? Did it rub you the wrong way? Where are you at with the whole Rory situation?
Yeah, I go back and forth on it. Part of the argument is a bye week for the best players or the best teams in playoffs is totally normal. And if you have a spectacular regular season, most other sports will reward those people with not having to play the earlier rounds. If you take money out of it, the only thing that's at stake this week is better positioning to make sure that you get into East Lake and have the head starting strokes, which isn't even going to be a thing after this year anyway. And Rory can't really move up. He can't move up. He's not going to get past Scotty. So he's kind of just stuck at 2. Maybe he gets bumped to 3, but it's so marginal at that point. He has so little to gain and he doesn't need more money. So I understand skipping ridiculously hot Memphis. I think that's probably my hottest take would be stop beginning the playoffs at Memphis in August, move this tournament to a different time of the year, put it in April or something when it's not ridiculously hot, and return us to the Northern Trust model to start the playoffs because there's no golf in the Northeast anymore. That I hate that they changed that. So that would be my biggest gripe with this. Does that change? Would Rory be here if he was playing in a New York City adjacent venue? Probably not. But you think twice about it. The idea of playing in hot Memphis with nothing on the line is a pretty easy pass. So that would be my plea, would be to get us back in New York so Cam Young can have another home game on his schedule. But that's all I got.
Yeah, you're right. Suck it in the humidity in Memphis on a course with 18 brand new greens that probably aren't very receptive, that is probably going to be annoying to players as it begins with nothing really on the line beside another paycheck, which clearly isn't a motivating factor for him to get up and play this event. So I think it's all in relation to how they've set up this system. And until something there changes, I think we actually probably see more players now that Rory has kind of opened this door, unless things change drastically, kind of players who are able within the top 5 to just go straight to the Tour Championship, I think is the move. I was shocked. I was doing some stuff earlier, just looking through stats and data this year. And I feel like guys aren't playing as much on the PGA Tour anymore. Like I
Yeah.
was looking at some of the total starts for players this year. Xander Schauffele, 14 PGA Tour starts on the year, and we're in August. There's a little bit of that injury related. Even Scotty Scheffler, 16 starts. I mean, these guys are used to getting between 20 and 25. Even someone like I was looking into Russell Henley, right? Russell Henley's only had 15 PGA Tour starts this year. He's basically only playing the signature events. Since the Masters, Russell Henley's only played 4 PGA Tour tournaments. He's played really well in all of them, but he's not showing up week in and week out anymore. So I think these guys, as the money keeps floating in, as they're able to accumulate points via these signature events and the bigger names are able to auto qualify and sponsor exemptions and all this stuff. I think, unfortunately, until the system is corrected, this becomes a reality that we probably see more players take advantage of. Because at this point, I feel like they're all out for themselves.
Yeah, totally. I think at the end of the day, golf is one of the only sports, probably tennis included, where the most important events are in the middle of the season, and there isn't the end of the season pales in comparison to it. So the great players build their schedules around being in form and trending into the majors, and then they get to this part of the year, and it's like, okay, I'll win some extra money. But the best players already have a lot of money, so it's like, what are they playing for truly? Maybe over time, being a tour champion means more when you look back and compare legacies in the modern era. That's possible. I think in the immediate, they don't care as much about it. The other thing I was thinking about is like, is 70 the right number to be in the playoffs and like guarantee setting your schedule? I think at 50 you set your schedule and you're guaranteed at top 70 you have your tour card for the following year, and then it's like 70 to 100 is who's like fighting in the fall swing, which like kind of makes sense. But what I was thinking is like, I'm looking at the guys who didn't make the season, and I'm looking at the guys who didn't make the playoffs in that like 71 to 90 range.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this fair? Did they deserve to be there? And I was expecting to be more like, wow, that guy had a good season and he didn't even make the playoffs because we dropped it down to 70. I didn't really feel that way. I'm
Same.
looking at the guys who didn't make it, and it's guys who either like were hurt and didn't play half the year, didn't win any events, had like the guys in the 70s had like 5 top 20s, like a Matt McCarty had like a good year, but none of these guys I'm looking at and I'm like, how did that guy not make the playoffs? And then by contrast, you see a guy like Cam Davis, who didn't win any events this year, had like 5 top 20s maybe, and they were all in signature events. So like that's how he got the points. But I want to say I think 70 is the right number.
Me too. I think it's the right number for the first leg. I think it's guys who popped enough to warrant a first round playoff bid. And I like onto that, like Davis Riley, Tom Hoagie, those type of players. But I hate I hate that they use the word playoffs.
Yeah.
Just because it's like the whole, I don't know, maybe it's tour finals or something like that, or just coming up with rebranding this whole championship that we're now 20 years into that hasn't really driven a ton of fan engagement, or obviously the players have issues with how the championship was done. They're now skipping the early events. But just the whole, when I think playoffs, it's win or go home, right? It's like do or die each way throughout. And the fact that now top players can just miss the first round and move on, and it doesn't have that cutthroat nature to it that you see out of playoffs and some of the other ones. We can do a whole deep dive. Maybe we'll do one this off season on how we would kind of restructure things. But let's do a little credit check from the Wyndham. We haven't done it in a few weeks. Wanted to check in, see kind of where your head's at. I'll kind of go first. I'm going to give credit check to the Rook, man, Jackson Koiven.
Yeah.
He's my guy this week. Awesome sort of finish there down the stretch, how he played at Wyndham. And it just kind of goes to show how prepared these players are to step right into the limelight. He's in the midst of his final year right now at Auburn University. 11th, 6th, 5th in his 3 PGA Tour starts since July. T5 at the Wyndham Championship in the final event of the season is big time. Gained nearly 12 strokes on the field last week. Obviously got himself a very high, nice paycheck there. And I think the future is very bright for a star like this. Always, we're kind of have this focus on these sort of expiring stars who are trying to find their way into the top 70 in playoffs. Joel Damon, Chris Kirk, these names that kind of come up a lot in those final tournaments of the year. So it was nice to just have a different storyline there, much like we saw Luke Clanton play really well in this stretch of Wyndham Championship, John Deere, and then carry that into the fall swing. I'll be interested and have some eyes on him and see what events he looks to play after the Tour Championship. So exciting future for Jackson Koivu. That's my credit check for this week. John, did you have anyone you wanted to shout out? Maybe Nico, maybe elsewhere. What are you thinking?
Yeah, maybe 3/4 of a credit check to Nico for for everything he did leading into Sunday. I mean, the obvious one is Cam Young. Like, he does deserve a lot of credit. That is a situation where, yes, the stakes are kind of much easier when you have a 5-stroke lead on one person going into the final round. It's much easier to close that out. But the way that he went about it and just taking it by the horns, not playing conservatively, playing his game, and all of his comments throughout, like, leading into that were very confident and very much unlike what his resume would otherwise suggest as this, like, career runner-up finisher. I'm like a Cam Young truther too. Like, I bet him way too much this year. I've begrudgingly brought him up, this on this show, as like the last man on my card at 200-1 in random tournaments. So I've been a believer in Cam Young. That's what made it sting a little bit more, is like, if it's not going to be Nico, I'm also not going to be on the Cam Young week when it's a good number. But he earned it, and he earned it in a way where, like, the approach numbers were not looking great, but his wedge numbers are really good. And he had a great driver week, which allowed him to hit wedges from the fairway throughout the tournament. And the putting has really turned into his strength, which is why I really feel great about taking him over Patrick Cantlay right now, if they're like two bubble guys, because he's turned into one of the best putters on tour this season, which is scary for his ceiling. And Patrick Cantlay's had his worst putting season of his career this year, which gives me concerns going into a Ryder Cup where every putt means so much. So Cam Young, big riser for me. Lots on the line there. Get over that unfair, like, reputation as a non-winner when he's so young, and played so well in so many big tournaments. Like, he has more runner-ups, putting himself in contention than so many other elite players in majors. So bright future ahead. Good kid. Happy for him. Even though I wasn't on him, happy for him and everybody who sweat him. Great week for Cam Young.
Shout out Ryan Baroff too. The guy is having an all-time year betting golf. If you're not following Ryan or Baroff. Awesome year for Ryan. Congrats to Cam Young. Good stuff. Let's shift gears to St. Jude. Real quick, John, shout out Sia in the chat, said congrats to you. Just wanted to mention, kind of show adjacent here, but exciting news for me. I signed a contract, baby. I don't know. I produced a written piece for the golf bet team with the PGA Tour. I don't know the extent of this at all, to be honest. It could be a one and done situation for me. It could be once a week. It could be once a month. I don't really know. I kind of jokingly sent them over the tweet that I prepared. I wanted to intentionally, for a couple of reasons. I do genuinely think it's kind of a big deal and exciting for me, without trying to toot my own horn. But from where this show started in a garage to just having that up there was really cool for me. But I sent them over. I'm like, I want to put this tweet out, and I made this graphic, and they kind of LOL'd me a little bit, but they're like, go ahead if you want to, like, whatever you think. And I put it up there and was really moved by the response from people. And I think they took notice too, because it got a ton of interaction. All the people that said congratulations and said really nice words meant a lot to me. I read every one of them. People that DM me privately, people that text messaged me, was really cool to kind of see. And hopefully the engagement that got, kind of, they saw maybe a little bit of that and were like, maybe the people want to read more of what this guy has to write. So I don't know the extent of it. I probably blew it up bigger than it actually is, but I was excited. My family was excited. So thank you to everyone who kind of reached out. Kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And hopefully it does lead to more of a recurring thing. You know, it's funny because in like a very meta way, this is now what my actual career is like finding creators and giving them a spotlight. And that's exactly what your path has been. This like grassroots, started from nothing, created your own account, just did it for the love of the game, built a following, turned the following into content and a side hustle and all this stuff. This is all things we talk about with any social creator who gets a big brand deal, doing the next thing and taking that next step up. And there's this value of being this micro community and then being like the mouthpiece for the micro community and getting that community support from there out. So I love to see it. Happy for you. I hope to see
Thanks,
more
dude.
of those posts going forward. And yeah, hopefully that gets you in the media center at every event you want to go to going forward now with that foot in the door.
I'm ready, baby. This show is ready. I'm ready this off season. We're going to talk preferred lines. We'll see what we can do over there as well. But exciting stuff. So thank you to everyone for that. All right, let's talk a little bit of TPC Southwind. And you are Mr. Everything you need to know about TPC Southwind. Here's what I need to know. They underwent an extensive renovation after last season. What's different? What's changed? How do you expect this course to play different than what we have maybe seen in years past?
Yeah, there was a renovation. To be honest, I didn't write as much about it in my preview this week because we just don't know how. I don't want to speculate about how it's going to impact play. What I do know is that it's not a routing of the course. It's not redoing. It's not, we're not putting different holes together, anything like that. It's really just the course was getting beat up, getting a lot of play, needed to restore it, put some new greens in, put some new surfaces in. So the overall yardage is almost exactly the same. I think less than 50 yards of actual change. So it's not like it's gotten any longer. You might get more of a true Bermuda roll here with new greens. I maybe reference how Colonial played in its first year since the renovation. That was much more extensive, where they were just redoing the sizes of the greens and where they put the bunkers and stuff. Not as much of that with this one. There's also there's just a lot of water here, which limits what you can really do with the space because you're not going to move the water. So I think it will still play exactly the same. The biggest difference I would look out for would be the putting. So maybe if you're somebody who hasn't putted well here, but tee to green, you've been good, maybe a new look at different style of greens is good. On the other end, if you putted great here, the greens are going to respond a little differently. That might be disorienting to people who've come back a bunch of times, putted well. I'm thinking of like a Daniel Berger, actually, who has putted really well historically and knows what these greens are supposed to do. And then you've got almost like a scar tissue when you come to new greens and you expect it to break a certain way, but they've changed them. So I would look out for that. But ultimately, I think it should still play. Let me know if you think any differently. But I think it should still reward the same style of play we've seen at Southwind.
Yeah, real true tee to green test, I think. If anything, as we know with new greens and they didn't reshape or recontour, but they tore them up, all 18 greens. So you replace all the dirt there, you resod them. What we know historically and what we know from playing ourselves is that they tend to be much firmer and take some time to settle in and be as receptive as probably they would like to do it. I think tournament officials at the end of last year, I saw a piece that they had talked about how they wanted the course to play firmer and faster. I think this is in an effort to kind of do so. And Bermuda grass greens, just in the heat of summer, as they do in Florida, they just need redone every now and then. They just don't last forever. So I think it was long overdue. The course was built in 1988, and this was the first major, complete redo of the greens that they've had since then. A couple of other things that I noticed that may be a little bit different. You mentioned just a slight adding of yardage. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but with the amount of water could potentially play a role in some sight lines off the tee. They may have to take a little bit of a different or unfamiliar angle that they were used to avoid water, which is a priority at this golf course. Is avoiding disaster. I prioritize accuracy over distance. I don't know how you feel about that. Not only the amount of water on the course, but on nearly every hole, it pays to be in the fairway more than it does to be 25 yards further down in the rough. You would almost always take the fairway, especially the rough here is, look, 3-inch Bermuda rough, right? That's more than we saw last week at the Wyndham. It's a half-inch longer than they had it last year. So they've grown up that rough a little bit. And that is not going to be the type of rough where you see the ball disappear, but that is plenty enough to impact what these players are doing heading into relatively small greens with a lot of water surrounding them and bunkering that can be challenging at times. So those are most of the course notes that I had. I mean, do you have anything from an approach standpoint in terms of specific yardages that you're looking into, or where do the majority of shots come from? Is a lot of wedges, middle of the bag, or are you looking more so at long irons?
Yeah, definitely a good diversity of approach shots throughout the bag. I think that's what makes this course really interesting. It plays different from your other like 72-ish 100-yard courses, where even if you look at Sedgefield last week, not too different on the scorecard, but Sedgefield is so concentrated in those like inside 150 approach shots. We saw that for sure from Cam Young. It seemed like every single hole he was hitting pitching wedge in from the fairway. That's how he dominated. Here you're gonna get your 200+ yard approaches. You're gonna want to lay back a little bit, be less aggressive, like you said, because of the penal Bermuda rough. We saw Nico get absolutely tormented by Bermuda rough last week, and this is going to be even worse than that. So there was just so many holes where the guy had like 200 in and he couldn't reach the fairway because you just can't get a solid strike out of Bermuda rough when it's that length. So that's really tricky navigating that. It is going to put an importance on fairways, but the fairway landing areas aren't the tightest here from what I've seen. And you look back on the leaderboards and it's not your typical like all accurate plotters. It's not like guys playing conservative off the tee. What I see is like a lot of aggressive ball strikers. And you look at like Hideki, who won last year, Sam Burns always in the mix, guys that I don't necessarily consider like, even like Lucas Glover, I would consider a little bit in that category because he's skilled enough as a ball striker to just fire at pins. I feel like you just have to be daring enough to say there's water on the left, but I'm still going to hit the drive. You know, I'm not going to bail out away from it. And you have to have a good ball striking week. It's never guys popping off the tee that win here. It's pretty much always approach and putting. But around the green is important. But yeah, there's something about like off the tee form when I'm looking through this that isn't super predictive. I don't really know why that is because it seems like it should be. But when I see a guy like Hideki win, Nick Dunlap was in the mix here last year. Like if Nick Dunlap's in the mix, how important could off the tee really be?
Yeah.
I know he kind of fell off a cliff afterwards, but I thought that was interesting. And when I think of like comps, it's less your Sedgefield because of that ability to get away with less off the tee form than most. I see a lot of correlation with TPC Scottsdale, where that feels to me like you got to hit that driver aggressively. You can't be erratic or you're going to be in trouble, and you got to like fire at some tough pins to win. And that's where you see Daniel Berger, Brooks, JT, all super high overlap between those two. Yep. Hideki plays really well there. So like super high correlation with Scottsdale. And I thought there was a lot of correlation too with the stadium course, with the Nick Dunlap thing. Patrick Cantlay has played very well here and there. Sepp Straka, I think, should have a good week here. He lost in the playoff to Zalatoris. So those were the two that I thought stood out to me as the best comp courses this week.
I saw you mention East Lake too. I thought that was a good pull as well. You look at the of course, it's recently renovated, similar greens, Zoysia fairways as well, which I think is nice. A nice little comp there for East Lake. I love what you said about like fearless approach players like Hideki, Justin Thomas, like fit that bill. Will Zalatoris, when he was firing, is like, I don't care where the water is. I'm so good on approach. I'm going after this pin. And if it like they're players where it could go horribly wrong, especially JT and Hideki. And I think back to like even Brooks and Dustin Johnson used to always
Yeah.
play really well here. Like guys who are just fearless, man. They just go for sticks. And like that is oftentimes can bust you out of this event, but that's oftentimes where the winner ends up coming from. Just real briefly, John, I'm going to pull up your BetSperts model here, as always, as we do each and every week. Promo code if you want to get involved over with the team at BetSperts. More guys onboarding every week. We talked last week about the addition of Pat Mayo. The promo code there is LINES, again, LINES, 25% off any sub. That'll get you access to both John and I's models. But I'm just going to kind of rip through your top 10 here, give the people a little glance. But you have Scheffler, Henley, Matsuyama, Fleetwood, Fitzpatrick, then Xander, Ben Griffin, Pat Cantlay, Victor Hovland, Sam Burns, rounding it out in the top 10. Who, when you ran the model and you saw their name in the top 10, was like the biggest surprise to you? Like, maybe I need to give this player a little bit more credit based on where they rated and some of the stats I'm looking at.
Yeah, I would say Hideki, honestly, even though he's the defending champ, he's not a guy who's popped all season for me. And I was happy to see him there because I feel like that's good validation that the model is solid if it's making a non-obvious player who did win last year. And I wasn't really on his tail last year. I was surprised how many people were on Hideki last year, and he really cruised. He should have cruised, and then he did what I hoped that Cam Young would do last week, and came back to the field and then got it back together when he needed to. That was such an interesting Sunday last year, by the way. I forgot about it, and then I rewatched the YouTube, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. He like fell apart on 2 holes. But yeah, Hideki, and you can see even in this visual here, like I have very low weighting on strokes gained off the tee. That's been what's killing Hideki this year. But if you look at all the other tee to green stuff, the comp course history, and obviously the course history, that's what's going to rise him up. And I put a lot more weight on the approach play, the comp course performance, the course history. The proximity buckets, 150 to 200. That's where he's really
middle
popping.
Of the bag. He's really good. Course history, he's second in both of those. So that's where he's making the majority of his headway.
Totally. So otherwise, I feel like the rest of this pretty much, I wouldn't expect to see Kurt Kitayama as high as he was, but the rest of the top 10, I feel like lines up. I was kind of looking for a reason to be on Tommy. He's always going to model well. I'd love to hear your take when we get through the board of like, I'm looking for aggressive ball strikers. I don't necessarily know that Tommy is what I'm looking for, where it's like fearless.
Yeah, fair.
And I've been kind of saving him one and done for this moment. So that's going to be really interesting choice. But I'm curious how your model compared to this one, if anyone's popping here that wasn't for you.
Let's hit the board. We'll talk through each of these players. All right, the betting board. Your odds to win the 2025 FedEx St. Jude Championship at TPC Southwind. Scott Scheffler, 3-1. This is the biggest gap I think I've seen, besides maybe the Charles Schwab in like a big time event. And it just kind of encompasses how he is on a tier of his own at the moment. But the next player on the odds board behind 3-1 Scheffler is Xander Schauffele, 16-1. Not a single top 5 on the season for Xander. So would really love to see him get things turned around in a course where he's played pretty well. Then you have Fleetwood and Thomas, who you mentioned, 25-1. Thomas, a former champion. Matt Fitzpatrick playing better golf at 28-1. 30-1, you get Henley, Morikawa, Hovland, Oberg at 33 there. John, where are you kind of circling in terms of the top of the board here on a Monday evening?
Well, I'm circling the without Scotty Scheffler market to begin with. I'm not taking him on. Like you said, it's the biggest gap we've seen. That is a testament to Scotty Scheffler being in the midst of one of the greatest seasons ever, but also Rory McIlroy not being here. And the third thing is, which I found really interesting, I was looking at the top 10 in the FedEx standings at the end of the year because the regular season's over. And you expect to see Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Xander. None of these guys are near the top of the season-long standings, which is either going back to what you were saying at the top of the elite guys just don't play enough anymore, or we really are in this like no man's land on the PGA Tour where Scotty's elite and none of the other stars are playing like stars right now. which is what gives me so much apprehension about the Team USA's Ryder Cup chances this year, because all of these guys who have been mainstays just aren't playing their best. So for all those reasons, I'm not confident in paying up for any of these guys to beat Scotty Scheffler this week. He's never won a FedEx, like one of the first 2 rounds of a playoff. So maybe that's the next thing that motivates him to clean up on his resume. Obviously, he has a Tour Championship. But yeah, I'm going without. I don't think the value is that bad when you take that price off. And I just, in a field of 70 players, I do expect Scotty Scheffler to be there, and he's played decently well here. So I'm going in that market. And if I look at this board, I have interest. I haven't actually placed any bets yet, but I have interest in Fleetwood, JT, Henley, and Hovland, and honestly, and Ludwig too. I'm probably going to bet 3 of those guys, and that may be my card.
Yeah, I went. I've made 2 bets. I am stepping on the tracks a little bit in the with Scheffler market, but I took Victor, and I took Russ Henley. I think that aggressive, fearless ball strikers kind of aligns with Hovland. When you said that kind of clicked in my head. Like, oh, it's another reason that I'd really like Victor this week. The approach, but he lost strokes on approach at the Open. I think it was the first event since like February that he's lost strokes on approach. I'll write it off. He's striking his irons so well right now. He is number 1 in the field also as well. When I looked from 150 to 175 yards, sort of a key bucket there that you talked about. Decent in his course history dating back here. He's actually improved each of the last 5 years. So 59th, 36th, 20th, 13th, and then T2 last year. So the only way to improve upon that once again would be to win this tournament. And I think it's a season where it just seems to be aligning for Vic. I love his attitude. I love how he kind of typically approaches the FedEx Cup playoffs and has played pretty well historically throughout them. So I'm going to take him here. Some ties to Memphis as well, rather loose, but I like Victor Hovland. And then Russ Henley, I'm concerned about that. He hasn't seen many starts, but 4 consecutive top 10s. If I'm kind of leaning into accurate iron players, accurate guys off the tee, guys who play really well on Bermuda grass, all of that kind of aligns with Henley to me. Always has played well at places like Waialae and PGA National and these courses that are Bermuda, that aren't overly long tracks where he's going to get overpowered by the field, but also courses that demand you keep it within the perimeter boundaries and the bumpers that are the water hazards. So TPC Southwind is another one of those courses because those penalty strokes will snap up to bite you. I love the way he's been playing right now. Certainly, going to be one of the auto picks on the U.S. Ryder Cup captain. And I feel like this is a good value spot for him. 30-1 is a nice betting price. He's the 4th person on the DraftKings salary board this week. He's up at 10K. I don't think many people are going to play him at that price. I think he's only been in the $10,000 range maybe 2 or 3 times in his career. So a really high price tag where I think a lot of people may avoid him. I like him in the outright market. I'll probably take on some of him in DFS as well. But Hovland, Henley right there at 30 are kind of the 2-pack that I snagged early this morning.
Yeah, those are the 2 first names that came to mind for me too.
And they're going to be really popular picks, right?
Yeah. I mean, some people might talk themselves off of Hovland on what should be like a short and positional. I wouldn't even call this positional though. Like the tree lines aren't really getting in the way. It seems on paper like it would be an accuracy course, and that might scare some people away from Victor with the season he's having. But yeah, I think he could do exactly what he did at Innisbrook, which in this course just feels like a Florida swing course to me with water everywhere and Bermuda everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Like he will be popular. I wrote him up. I love him. I think that number's crazy. I thought he would definitely be shorter than a couple like he has to be shorter than Morikawa. That's crazy that they're at the same price. Yeah. So I'm with you. Henley has had oddly not the best track record here, a couple top 10s and then a couple missed cuts, which is odd to me. He's from this area. Like he should be able to withstand the heat better than most, like knowing this area. So I like him. I'm definitely starting there. And then my decisions are like, how do uh I'm leaning away from Fleetwood. I'm probably just stuck there on one and done because I have no other elite choices. And I feel weird like really rooting for him in one and done and then really rooting for him to not win because I didn't bet him. So that'll be this internal struggle for me, but I'm leaning away from it. JT, yes, he's won here. I feel like the form isn't quite where it was when he won. So I'm probably talking myself off of there. And then I look at Ludwig, who I bet last year was really good ball striking last year at this event and just couldn't putt. The ball striking's back. Like the form is back to vintage Ludwig, and the putting's been okay. It hasn't been bad. It's just been about average week over week. This is totally a Ludwig course. I actually think wherever Zalatoris plays well, I think they have very similar games.
I like that. Yeah. You don't really have to putt here. Even looking back when Justin Thomas won here, he lost strokes putting.
Yeah, that's right.
On the week. And like the weird thing about Justin Thomas for me, and I immediately like was one of the first names that jumped out of my head because I just in my brain, I know he always plays well here. I remember his win sort of battling Brooks down the finish there when I had Brooks. But he always did it when like the hallmark of his game was like being one of the top 3 like approach ball strikers in the field. And Justin Thomas is like, that's not his game. Like this season, he's a putter. Like the strongest part of his game right now is putting. He's gaining in every event that he plays a ton with the putter, and he has never gained strokes putting at TPC Southwind. So I think this is a course where even though they're new greens, he's never really putted well on them. His strongest asset at the moment is his putting. So maybe those kind of cancel each other out. Really bad putter historically, really good putter this year. Maybe they both come back to the middle a little bit. And I just don't think his ball striking at the moment is strong enough to carry him like it had in years past when he just completely dominated, on approach. So like gaining 7.6 on approach the year that he won, 6.1 the year after, 3.77 last year. Like he's just not doing that right now in any tournament. So it's just hard for me to get behind it, which is why I went with Henley and Hovland, who I think have been much more solid on approach, at least the last 24, 36, 50 rounds than Thomas.
Yeah, I agree. We're on the same page on that.
Let's shift to page 2 here. Interesting names. Pat Cantlay right there. A lot to play for Pat Cantlay now that his name's being floated around. 35-1. You've got Hideki, defending champion, at 40, playing better golf. Connors 40, Burns 40, Rye, Cameron Young, champion last week, Ben Griffin 40-1, Harry English 45, Keegan 45, Sepp Straka 45-1. A lot of names bunched here right between 35 and 45-1. And John, like, after watching what I watched last week, like, why shouldn't we bet Cam Young again?
Yeah.
I mean, Lucas Glover isn't this where Lucas Glover went back to back? Like, it just feels like you're going to give me 40. And that was one of the most dominant ball striking performances I've ever seen. Like, he was hitting it close from the fairway. He was hitting it close from the rough. And the guy is figured out the putter right now, and he can dial it back. He can have an extra gear when he needs it. Playing really good golf, confidence. I don't think he's the type of guy that you worry like is going to over celebrate that one win. I saw a couple interviews where he's like, I'm just going to go to Memphis and FaceTime my family and we're on to the next tournament. I think he can ride this form, and he has big goals over the next month here. And I think it's a worthy price if you're going to back him to win again in a 69-man field.
Yeah, he's the guy I like most on this page. I'm probably not going to bet anybody on this page, to be honest, because I like concentrating in that first page, trying to get exposure to 3 of them and then maybe a long shot in there. But you're right. I mean, we watched Lucas Glover do it. So, there's the slight correlation playing well the week before and then having some urgency in the playoffs. It's even if he wasn't the personality type we know him to be, you can't really like wait long to celebrate. And like, you got to just like go through the playoffs because there's so many, there's money at stake. There's points at stake. Getting to East Lake is super important. He's not guaranteed there just yet. So he needs to keep his foot on the gas. It's a great fit for him. He does have very poor course history here. That's probably why he's at 40 in a short field, coming off a win. But T31, T61 in a limited field is not great.
Yeah.
But it's been all poor putting, and now he's just like Justin Thomas, mirror image of Justin Thomas, been
Yeah.
all putting this year and no ball striking. So that seems due to change. Harris English continues to play great golf. I think he'll be a popular bet this week. 45 is a little short from what we're used to seeing with him, but we're also looking at him as this like Ryder Cup lock, whether he's in on points or not. And you have to just kind of look back and appreciate the season he's had, him being very much a Bermuda guy. Someone I'll probably play in DFS, if not bet. And then Straka obviously lost in the playoff to Zalatoris. He should play well this week. He's had a bit of an up and down last couple months, but a great overall season. This should suit his game really well. If he figures out the ball striking to the point where it was earlier in the season, I think he's actually a really good value on the bottom of this page.
Yeah, and the only other one I think, like, we might just be sleeping on Hideki again.
Yeah.
I mean, his course history is phenomenal. 4 straight top 20s. He's got a first and a second in there. He's had some unbelievable ball striking weeks. And that part of his game is really back. Gained 5.8 on approach last week at the Wyndham. 8.5 at the Rockets, 6.7 at the U.S. Open. These are within his last 5 starts. When I looked at strokes gained tee to green on courses with a lot of water, third best in the field, second best in strokes gained total at St. Jude over the last 5 years. It feels like a very fair price for him as defending champion. It feels like this is the price you give a defending champion who's coming in not playing very good golf. And I think that, 19th, 16th, 13th, they aren't results that are going to like scream off the page at you that this guy's playing really well. Losing strokes off the tee, which, like you mentioned, you're not putting as much weight of it, but that's what's killing him. And he's actually better on courses with a lot of water for some reason. The math doesn't totally math there, but I think it's a very fair price, and I think he's playing better than it seems. And I think 40-1 on him in this range with Connors and Burns and Rye and guys who just frankly haven't won in a long time is sort of out of pocket for a player of Hideki's skills at this course.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's number 3 in my model, and I even kind of dismissed that, like, oh, well, it's not going to happen again. But you look at the numbers more closely, and he's the approach numbers are back to true Hideki form. He's doing like the crazy spike, like top 5 every week in approach thing over the last month.
Yep.
So all the things we love about Victor are also true about Hideki, and he's a proven winner here, and he's 10 points longer. So the case definitely does make sense for Hideki.
Your boy will fire at some like pins he shouldn't also.
Yeah.
To his detriment or to his success. But here's just long shots. There's just a bunch of them on the board here. If you're with us in YouTube, thanks for hanging with us. But some notables like Goddard up at 50-1, playing great. Spieth at 50-1. Daniel Berger, awesome course history here at 50-1 as well. Wyndham Clark, who you talked up a little bit there at 60. A lot of guys kind of in this range as the field narrows down to 69. Of course, a no-cut event, but you've got Scotty Scheffler at the top. Is this a week? Are you going to kind of just stay concentrated at the top of the board, or is there a name here you think may present some value in a super bomb market?
Yeah, I think I'll throw one more bomb. I think I have room to do like 3 guys in the mid 20s in a non-Scheffler market, and then one more. So I see a lot of Chris Kirk love. I know you're a big Chris Kirk guy.
Yep.
That's a crazy number, 100-1 with the form that he's in right now. I got to pull that up again, but I know I remember looking at it and being like, wow, the form is great and the course history is great, and he's 100-1. Won the Century. Like, he's won big boy events before too, so it's not like he can't do it. A T16 and a T6 over his last 4 trips to this event, coming off a T5 last week, a T2 at the Rocky Classic. So he's put himself in the mix a lot. It's the type of course that makes sense for Chris Kirk. You just hit it accurately. I don't know if I would necessarily call him like a fearless ball striker, but he does play really well on these like water heavy courses. I'm thinking about PGA National where he's mixed too. I think he has some good performances at the Amex as well. So He would be the guy who jumps out as the best value to me on this board. I didn't really think much about Nick Taylor. I haven't seen what he's been doing lately, but this seems like the type of course that he would play well on, with the Scottsdale comp top of mind. And then Wyndham Clark, 60. I may not get that on my card, but I think that's a really good number. The form has been really good. Bunch of top 15s lately. He was T7 at this event last year.
Yeah.
So I think he's hot right now, and I think he can continue that form. He's had pretty good results on the positional courses too. So even though he's got that reputation for spraying the driver, he is also one to kind of club down when he needs to.
I wanted to like Berger. I wanted a better price on him. I kind of came to this week when I ran my first model and really kind of wanted him. I don't think he's totally out of the Ryder Cup picture. I think he's got to he's got to win. I think this is a tournament that he potentially can. And he's right back in there. I mean, he's ahead in the Ryder Cup standings at the moment. He's sandwiched between Wyndham Clark and Chris Gotterup. So he wins this event. He plays well down the stretch. I think he's a player that a lot of guys would want to play with and guts and has some experience in those type of events. The other one, give me triple digits on Denny and I'll be a sucker. I'll take it again. 9th here last year. Was actually in it at one point on Sunday. Had the best weekend of any player at the Wyndham Championship. Barely flirted through the cut line. Ended up finishing inside the top 10 there. So a really good week. Had the round of the day on Sunday. 4 out of his last 5 events, he's been really solid, gaining strokes on approach, which I think is a positive thing for him. And he just, we're looking for a spike putting week, and maybe this is back on Bermuda where it could finally happen for him. I need triple digits, so something more than 70-1. But most of my card, like I mentioned, I've got the 2 guys at 30. I'm in on Cam Young at 40, maybe one more in there, and then I'll kind of peek to the without Scheffler market as that evolves throughout this week.
Awesome. Yeah, it's an interesting week, but I'm not taking on Scotty at this point after what he did the last time we saw him. Sometimes weeks go on where you haven't seen Scotty and you forget just how much of a boogeyman he is, and I'm like, no, I still am very afraid of that man, and I'm not even bothering with taking him head on.
And you find yourself like, what reasons? Like on Monday, you're like, the reasons to not bet Scheffler this week. And you're like, oh, a lot of water. Maybe he misses a couple. His driving accuracy is a little down this year. 4th it's like shocking. Like we'd love a T4 from like any other player in the field. We'd point to as a positive. For him, it's like a negative. Like 4th is his best finish here. He's the dragon. I think, it's hard to say anything bad about him. And you just got to hope that it's golf and maybe it's a week where he's a little bit off, but you're probably right. The without Scheffler market probably possesses a good bit more value, especially if those prices are close, given that the sports books are kind of factoring in. He's probably got a 25-30% chance to win based on their odds.
Yeah. It's usually like 5 to less than 10 points off you're taking on the number. So
yeah,
we'll see.
All right, brother. Great show. Great week. Good luck to you. Hope that we hit a winner this week. We'll be back next week, obviously, to cover Caves Valley and leg 2 of the FedEx Cup Playoffs. We're with you the rest of the year. Thanks, as always, for your support. As always, the best way to support the show, help us out with one of the promo codes we launched. The description, if you want a sweet little golf gambling club member tee like I got on here, is in the description of this podcast, and link to the store. That helps us out as well. John, you're the man. We'll catch you next week. Appreciate everyone for checking out Preferred Lines. Good luck at the St. Jude. We'll see you next week. Peace out, gang.